A pregnant nun came to the bank for an inheritance, but when the banker asked her the first question, he dashed into the vault. The day began as usual. The security guard arrived first and opened the bank. Alongside him, Mr. David, the manager, started his work. He was perhaps the most meticulous person in the world. His shirt was always perfectly ironed, his tie was tied as if God himself had worked on the knot, cufflinks adorned his sleeves. Shirts changed, but those cufflinks remained the same. Apparently, they were as precious as a memory of the person who had given them. Mr. David welcomed the employees at the doors. No one knew that this function wasn't actually part of his responsibilities. He was just a stickler to the core and couldn't tolerate lateness. Needless to say, the whole team slightly disliked him. For the third time being late, he issued a reprimand with a note in the personal file, and for the fourth time, he fired them. Fortunately, every year Mr. David erased all the colleagues' sins, allowing them to make their little mistakes again. Many believed he was a robot, not a human. Once, when one of the veteran security guards passed away late in the evening at his home, Mr. David, not seeing him on time at his workplace, started to rage. Why is he still not here? Am I the one who should stand at the bank's doors? He yelled. Learning about the colleague's sudden demise, the employees tried to calm the manager. We were informed that he passed away from heart failure last night. Well, so what? Does that mean he shouldn't show up for work? He should have warned. This is his fourth lateness, he's fired. Perhaps such a dialogue could only be heard in a place where someone like Mr. David worked. His colleagues were afraid of him. Perhaps he was the one who united them. They didn't bicker inside the team only because they had a common enemy, a strict and impartial bank manager. Besides his meticulousness, this person had the skill of pleasing the higher-ups and appeared to everyone, without exception, as a self-satisfied and conceited type. On that day, the bank's work started without incidents. Well, almost. The security guard was half a minute late and was scolded to death by Mr. David. It was amusing to watch the short guy in the tie lecturing the tall and broad-shouldered man in uniform. After enduring the angry tirade and receiving his second warning this year, the security guard went to his workplace. When the manager left, the air immediately felt cleaner, and life seemed more beautiful. Closer to noon, as the big bosses were getting ready for lunch, a young woman approached the building. She was young and slender, her body covered by a nun's habit or something very similar to it. The bank visitor was evidently a church sister or a mother. The security guard was slightly taken aback, as the young woman had one more striking feature compared to the surroundings: she was pregnant. Her large, round belly protruded. She seemed to be at least in her 7th month. The security guard raised his eyebrows in surprise, and the woman looked at him calmly. Her skin was porcelain-like, and she had black eyebrows. She paid no mind to the surprise that could be seen in the guard's eyes. "Good day," she greeted politely but without a smile. "Hello," the security guard replied. "My property is stored in this bank, and I would like to retrieve it. Could you please direct me to the appropriate person?" The security guard nodded and led the nun along the bank. She walked behind him quietly, not looking around. But he saw the astonished faces of his colleagues, who peeked out from their workstations upon seeing the woman in a habit. "Mr. David, someone has come to see you," the security guard said embarrassedly. The manager quickly looked at the visitor. Only for a moment did surprise flash in his gaze. He immediately straightened up and nodded at the security guard. "Please, come in. How may I assist you?" he politely asked the nun. She entered the office and stopped in the middle. "My property is stored here, rightfully inherited. I brought the necessary documents and the key." She handed the package of documents to the manager. Looking at them, Mr. David raised his eyebrows. Now he couldn't hold back. Looking carefully at the documents, he shifted his gaze to the visitor, then back to the papers. "Is something wrong?" she asked. Mr. David cleared his throat and shook his head. "I apologize, it's just that this is a very old vault. Legends circulate about it." I didn't think anyone would come for its contents in my lifetime. The young woman smiled. So, you knew my father? She concluded. Everyone knew him, believe me. He was a great man. Mr. David realized he had blabbered too much and started flattering the visitor. However, his confusion was understandable from the very beginning. Everyone knew who Benjamin Ross was. In the 1990s, he was the chief criminal authority not only in their city but also in the entire region. Rumors of his cruelty stirred minds, and the police didn't venture into his home because they feared him to death. Benjamin Ross never yelled, he spoke quietly, almost melodically. Every word he uttered was precious. No business was opened without his consent. His men exerted influence over the whole city. It was an absolute monopoly. He had killed so many people, it was terrifying to even think about. Some had personally witnessed how Benjamin dealt with torture. Being a convict, he loved this method, but sometimes he used conventional weapons as well. They said he introduced the trend of cementing the legs of debtors and throwing them from the central bridge in broad daylight. Benjamin never feared that someone would see him. He knew that no one judged him. He himself was the law for everyone in that city. Benjamin's only weakness was a woman. He loved his second wife to death. His first marriage was unhappy, and he had a stepson from that marriage. He took a woman with a child. However, she couldn't bear his lifestyle, the constant blood on her husband's shirt cuffs, his nightly trips to the woods with shovels. She left him, but the stepson was drawn to Benjamin. Andrew adored his stepfather and wanted to be just like him in everything. Benjamin's second marriage was completely different. Meeting a beautiful pianist changed him. During that time, the murders ceased, and Benjamin began to forgive debtors, sparing their lives. People started talking about the criminal authority going soft. Those who dared to voice this out loud, however, faced inevitable retribution. Benjamin cared for Diana like a princess. He managed to gain the trust of her mother, who approved of their marriage. Diana couldn't resist Benjamin's charisma and criminal charm, and she became his wife. Soon, she gave birth to a daughter for him. She resembled her father in appearance, like two drops of water. They had a happy marriage, a strong family. They genuinely loved each other, and few in the city were unaware of that love. Benjamin fired fireworks on his wife's birthdays, organized grand celebrations. He loved her loudly and openly. Diana was ready to give her life for her husband. And that's exactly what happened. Benjamin Ross' daughter Amanda was 8 at the time, a little girl who adored her father and was his daddy's girl. Benjamin also had a relationship with his son from the first marriage, Andrew. He was 6 years older than Amanda, but he didn't like his stepsister and was horribly jealous of her affection for their stepfather. Even Benjamin's ex-wife always said that he loved Amanda more than he did Andrew. Benjamin himself stated that he loved both children equally and that there was no difference to him because Andrew wasn't his biological child. This happened during Amanda's 8th birthday celebration. The banquet was held at Benjamin's country house, and as tradition dictated, he invited half the town. Live music played, and it was already dark. Amanda danced with her friends, wearing an incredibly beautiful and lavish dress, an unbelievable luxury for those times. All the invited girls envied her, but she was so carefree that she didn't even remember what she was wearing. Benjamin knew that a serious competitor had emerged in the city and that he needed to deal with him. However, he put everything aside for the celebration of his beloved daughter's birthday. His son Andrew was there, as was Diana's mother and Amanda's grandmother, and a bunch of other guests who didn't even know each other. Children filled the yard, and they had a separate table. Suddenly, a black car drove up to the gates. Amanda remembered that car well. A person in a black suit got out of it and pulled out a machine gun. Amanda only managed to shout, "Daddy." In the next moment, her grandmother shielded her. She was standing nearby and reacted quickly. The orchestra fell silent. Frightened musicians were deafened by the sounds of gunfire. Her grandmother managed to tell Amanda to lie on the grass. She herself also leaned against the ground, but with 2 bullets in her stomach. The target was the Ross family. Diana stood next to her husband. She was the first to be hit, protecting her beloved man. Benjamin managed to draw a gun from his back and began firing at the car. Gunfire came from there in return. The shootout ended fatally for everyone. Benjamin's competitor was shot dead on the spot. A bullet hit him accidentally, even though he wasn't the one firing. He had just decided to personally witness how his hitman would kill Benjamin and everyone he held dear. Diana died instantly. Her mother, who shielded her granddaughter, also perished. Benjamin was conscious when the ambulance arrived, but he was seriously wounded. "Is Diana dead?" he asked the doctors. "Unfortunately, she died before our team arrived." "My condolences," the doctor said. "Then I will go to her too." "Don't save me." Of course, the doctor couldn't act that way. Benjamin was brought to the hospital, but he died on the operating table, just as he wanted, following his beloved. Andrew and his mother were unharmed. They were the ones who inherited almost all of Benjamin's property. Seeing his father's brutal death, Andrew vowed that when he grew up, he would kill everyone involved, friends and relatives of those who had shot Benjamin that day. Amanda, on the other hand, ended up in an orphanage. There was no one left who wanted to take the little girl in. But the worst part was that the little girl suffered an intense psychological trauma that day. Her entire family disappeared before her eyes. Rumors circulated that what Benjamin's ex-wife inherited was only a small part, and his daughter Amanda received much more when she reached adulthood. Her will was crafted for her, containing many luxury items, properties, and precious metals. However, Amanda, haunted by the past, from a young age, sought solace in the church. She began studying economics, but realized on the final year that it wasn't her calling and dropped out, just a step away from obtaining her diploma. Some said she was crazy, while others believed she suffered from melancholy. She was an extremely introverted person, never discussing what had happened with anyone. Many journalists tried to interview her, but Amanda simply remained silent. And now, after all these years, she entered the bank and requested to open the safety deposit box of the famous Benjamin Ross. To some in the city, Amanda's father wasn't a criminal authority and murderer. Many remembered him as a talented football player. Others knew him as a man who helped elderly homes. The main city retirement home was built with his funds. It remained the best in the region to this day. Benjamin deeply loved his grandmother, who raised him alone. In her memory, he built the home for the elderly. "Here you go, this is yours," Mr. David said with a grin. Amanda calmly took the box from his hands, filled with gold and valuable jewelry. There was no trace of greed in her gaze. "Thank you," she said meekly. "Driving around town with this could be dangerous. Would you like me to have our security guard escort you to your destination?" the manager offered, his eyes gleaming. Amanda shook her head and replied, "No, thank you, there's no need." She was about to leave, but David's question held her at the door. "And what do you plan to do with such wealth, if it's not a secret? Your father was known for his generosity towards the elderly. You must be planning to make a donation?" Amanda smiled, "Yes. The money will be spent on repairing the church where I lived. They took me in during a difficult time, and thanks to that, I met the man I love, my husband. I want to renovate and restore it to make it the best in the region." David nodded respectfully, paying her a compliment. As soon as Amanda left, he approached his security guard and instructed him to discreetly follow her. Amanda got into her car and drove away. Someone had brought her here and was waiting across the street. The guard quickly jumped into the manager's car and followed them. Meanwhile, Mr. David dialed Andrew Ross' number. "Mr. Andrew, your sister visited our bank today." "Yes, she retrieved the contents of the safety deposit box." "Don't worry, my man will keep an eye on her. I offered her an escort, but she declined. I'll have her address soon." "Yes, she mentioned she intends to repair some church." "You were right, the girl is clearly not in her right mind to spend such wealth on some dilapidated place." Before Amanda could arrive back home in the village, a black car caught up with her and her husband at a gas station. As a man in a black suit emerged from the car, those same terrifying childhood memories flooded Amanda's mind. She froze with fear. The man approached her, aimed a gun at her abdomen, and shouted, "Give everything quickly. Move." Amanda's husband, Darren, was settling the payment with the cashier. He didn't immediately notice the robber amidst the noise of passing cars. When he did notice, Amanda had already handed over everything and was choking back tears of fear and panic. The man in the suit swiftly jumped into his car. Darren rushed to Amanda, asking, "Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" Unable to speak, she shook her head and stuttered, "They just took the box. Stay here, I'll be back soon. I'll catch these bastards, I'll at least get their license plate numbers." Darren quickly hopped into the car, while Amanda yelled for him to stop, that they had a firearm. But Darren wasn't the type to let things go uncontested. He felt obligated to handle it himself, to protect his woman, and he followed the black car. Amanda remained standing there. Panic escalated, she didn't know what to do. Her phone was still in the car. Soon, a pregnant woman approached her at the gas station. "Can I help you? Please help me call the police. I was robbed, and they might kill my husband now." The next events were a blur for Amanda. She vaguely remembered dialing the police, incoherently recounting everything. She was promised that help was on the way. The gas station attendant led Amanda inside, and they waited together for the police to arrive. 20 minutes later, a regular car pulled up at the gas station. The driver got out, paid for gas. While the cashier processed his payment, he began talking about a severe accident not far from there. "What happened there?" the woman inquired. "Some guy in a white car got killed, practically nothing was left of the car. My buddy called and told me there was shooting involved. Poor guy. It's hard to say if he got shot or died in the crash." Hearing the conversation, Amanda lost consciousness. A commotion began. The gas station cashier called for an ambulance, but the police arrived first. They confirmed that Amanda's husband had died in the accident. After that, Amanda's water broke and labor began. The day was a blur, and the memory of it was too terrifying to recall. 14 days later, Amanda lay in a hospital room with her babies. It seemed like the worst was behind her. Giving birth in such a fragile emotional state was a challenge for Amanda. Considering it was a multiple pregnancy, and her first one at that, the doctors rushed her in for a cesarean section. They hadn't even finished the paperwork, they needed to save her life. She kept losing consciousness, from shock, from pain, and she cried incessantly. Amanda Ross underwent a cesarean section, and she and her babies were immediately taken to the intensive care unit. The gestational period was quite short, 7 months. Of course, twins are often born prematurely, but this was unexpectedly early. The babies entered the world underweight and frail, yet remarkably resilient. They quickly learned to feed on their own, and on the 14th day, the doctor discharged Amanda. She didn't make it to her husband's funeral, the entire village saw him off. Everyone knew he was a good man who helped many, nobody had a bad word to say about him. He was a believer, and the priest himself paid for most of the funeral expenses and performed all the necessary rites. Amanda cried a lot, and when she got home, the priest came to visit her. He had once taken her in, helped her overcome the nightmares. Amanda had worked at the church for several years, assisting with various tasks. Afterward, she met a man, got married, and became pregnant. She continued to attend church and received a salary, but by the 4th month of her pregnancy, the priest advised her to stay home to take care of her children. Twins put an extra strain on her. "Amanda, you faced great sorrow, but also great joy. You lost your husband, but the Lord blessed you with 2 sons. How much they resemble Darren." The priest heard Amanda's confession, and she received the sacrament in the church. Kind people helped her with the children, giving her heaps of baby clothes. Her babies lacked for nothing. 3 years went by. Amanda stood with her sons at the local clinic. Gareth was fine. The doctor said he had inherited all the good health. However, Horace was ill. He was born smaller than his brother and fell sick more frequently. Now he needed surgery. It wasn't particularly expensive, but Amanda had no way of gathering that much money. She had stopped working at the church, immersing herself in motherhood. Her babies were born very fragile and required constant care. The first 2 years were incredibly tough, but things got a bit easier afterward. They started walking on their own and could communicate when something hurt. Amanda stopped wearing the cassock that had once given her comfort and peace. She no longer aspired to faith and stopped attending the church. The priest often asked her about it, but Amanda would simply shake her head. She didn't feel drawn to it anymore. In truth, she understood the reason. Amanda harbored resentment toward the Almighty, not comprehending why he had treated her and her children this way. She still prayed, but she wasn't ready to dedicate her life to God. Amanda had gotten used to wearing long dresses and skirts. This habit remained with her, but she no longer covered her head. Now everyone could see her thick, long chestnut hair. She was a natural beauty, no makeup was needed. Many men from the village would stare at her, even the married ones. Although Amanda had removed her mourning attire for her husband, she couldn't imagine herself with anyone else. Now she was facing an unpleasant task. She had to visit a person she hadn't seen in many years. She knew that Andrew Ross had never liked her from childhood. He considered her crazy, and they never interacted. Amanda hadn't had his phone number all these years, but she remembered where he lived. It was the very same house where she was born and raised, and in the yard of which they had once celebrated her birthday. Amanda left her children with a neighbor grandmother. She was happy to look after them, assisting the young widow. Amanda reached the city in 4 hours. It would have been quicker by car, but now she needed money for the surgery, so she saved on everything. Arriving at the large country house, Amanda was taken aback. She saw the same iron fence where everything had happened. Images from the past resurfaced in her memory, flashing before her eyes, even though more than 20 years had passed. The thought of Horace, who needed surgery, quelled her panic. Amanda took a few deep breaths and entered through the gates. She rang the doorbell, and shortly after, Andrew appeared at the doorstep. He recognized her. It was evident in his eyes. "Didn't think I'd see you again." "Hello, Andrew. Will you let me in? We need to talk." They entered his house. Amanda noticed that little had changed inside. Andrew was conservative. He fervently preserved memories of their father. This was exactly what brought them together. Amanda told her stepbrother about her son's illness. He carefully inquired about her family, and Amanda recounted what had happened 3 years ago. She saw pain in his eyes, as if he were experiencing it all over again. And that was a first. Somewhere deep within her, a glimmer of hope appeared that they could mend their relationship. "I'm sorry, I don't have the money right now. It's a crisis. I'm barely making ends meet. But I'll still help you." Andrew pulled out a few bills from his pocket and handed them to Amanda. She felt embarrassed, but she accepted. "Thank you. I understand. Call me if you need anything. I'd be glad to talk. You can visit your nephews." Andrew nodded briefly. It was clear he wasn't planning on reconnecting. As Amanda got up and was heading to the door, Andrew called out to her. "You know, there's something I could do for you after all. If you agreed to sell me your shares in the company, there would be enough money to cover the surgery," he said. Amanda sighed. She hadn't even thought about that packet. She only heard about it during her father's will reading when she inherited shares in the company. She was 18 then. It was another anniversary of her parents' death, the 10th one. Benjamin, the family lawyer, came to her and handed over numerous valuable documents, a bank account, and the keys to the safety deposit box that ultimately led to her husband's downfall. Amanda knew those were blood-stained riches. She went to the church to pray for her father's sins and had no intention of using his wealth. Only when rumors started circulating in the area about the church being in a state of disrepair and possibly needing to close until funds were raised for repairs did she decide to take what her father had bequeathed to her. "I don't need anything, you know that. If you want to buy the shares, I'll sell them to you." "But you said times were tough, and there's no money," Amanda said. Andrew hesitated. "Other shareholders will help me. They asked about it. We'll come up with something." Amanda agreed, brought the documents, and although she hadn't been trained for this, she understood financial matters excellently. For some time, she had been handling them at the church, assisting the priest with accounting. He had always said Amanda would have made an excellent economist. When she went to Andrew, she handed him the papers, and he had already prepared the transfer agreement for the shares. "A gift deed? You promised to buy the shares from me." "Of course. Here's the money, it's yours." "It's exactly the amount you requested for the surgery," Andrew said. Amanda quickly read through the documents. "The shares are worth 10 times more." Andrew sighed. "These are tough times now, as I told you. I can't give you more for them." "No, if you don't want to, you can keep them." Amanda nodded quickly. "I don't need them, even for free." "Thank you, you've helped me." She smiled at him, genuinely thanked him, and left his house with the money. He could have just lent her that amount, but he needed her father's company shares. Andrew managed to keep the company afloat and even opened a subsidiary in a neighboring city. Amanda believed she had done the right thing. He might have compelled her to do it this way, but those shares were of no use to her. After what had happened with Darren, she was even afraid to touch her father's inheritance. Soon, the operation for her son was scheduled. The second child was being cared for by the matron. Amanda gathered Horace and went with him to the city hospital. "Your son's tests are good. Shall we proceed with the surgery tomorrow?" The surgeon cheered her. For every mother, a surgery for their child is terrifying. She was very anxious and cried almost the whole night. When she walked into the corridor, she bumped into a man. He was tall, blond, and had a gentle appearance. "Excuse me," Amanda apologized timidly. "Is something wrong?" he asked. "No, nothing. Everything's fine," Amanda replied. "It's just that my child is having surgery tomorrow, and I'm nervous." The man sighed. "My daughter had surgery today." "Is it the same type of surgery?" "I overheard a conversation with the anesthesiologist." Later in the evening, a doctor approached Amanda. While all the other doctors reassured her that everything would be fine and the surgery would only take half an hour, this doctor began to scare Amanda, telling her they would induce a state of artificial coma. It was almost like dying. She said they wouldn't provide good anesthesia and suggested she buy an excellent drug that's easier for children to tolerate. Amanda emptied her wallet, and from that moment on, she couldn't stop worrying. Remembering that conversation, she let out a sigh. "Do you know that there is no other drug? They take this money and that's it. They intentionally scare parents," she said. "Didn't you pay?" she asked. "I paid. But then a nurse told me," he replied. "But that's terrible. Why do they do this? I can't calm down now." The man sighed. "The cafeteria doesn't close at night. Let's have some tea. I have some with Melissa." He showed a box with tea bags and smiled. Amanda nodded. She looked into the ward to make sure Horace was sleeping soundly and followed the stranger. The cafeteria was quiet, sterile, and empty. During the day, someone was always around, but at night, there was a different atmosphere. "My name is Austin," the man introduced himself. "Amanda. Nice to meet you." Austin told her that he had been raising his daughter alone since her birth. His wife didn't survive childbirth, she had many illnesses. She had pneumonia during pregnancy, and their daughter barely survived. Austin worked in the ambulance service, but only in the day shift. His family was somewhere on the outskirts of the country, incredibly far away, and there was no one to help with the child. However, they managed to gather money for their daughter's treatment. "Amanda, don't worry. The surgery is straightforward, slightly more complex than an appendix removal. And the surgeon here is wonderful, I know him. He taught at our institute when I was a student. They even tried to lure him to the Capitol, but he didn't leave. There's nothing to fear. The anesthesiologist, of course, exaggerates, but God is her judge. They talked for almost the entire night. Amanda managed to sleep only 3 hours, Horace woke up shortly after, and a few hours later, the doctor came. The surgery was the scariest thing. Handing her little one over was so difficult, but Amanda did it with a smile, not to scare her child. Although he still cried. As soon as they took him away, Austin approached Amanda. Now, don't fall apart. Pull yourself together. Children sense their mother's mood. I could afford to cry, but you can't, he said firmly. Amanda, who was already on the verge of tears, suddenly stopped. Wait, did you cry? No. I shaved during that time, took a shower. When I came back, my girl was already sleeping on the bed. She slept for another hour, and when she woke up, she looked funny. They're quite amusing after anesthesia. You look at them and feel like the light is on, but there's no one at home. Amanda burst into laughter. Austin didn't leave her side for a moment during the surgery. When they brought Horace back and informed her that everything went well, she smiled happily. Thank you. I would have cried my eyes out if not for your support. Amanda said. Single mothers need to support each other. Austin winked at her. They talked the entire time until they were discharged. It happened on the same day, but Austin and Amanda exchanged numbers. It turned out that they didn't live too far from each other. Austin lived in a district town, just 50 kilometers away from the village where Amanda settled. They started calling and communicating. About a month later, Austin called Amanda and said, Let's live together. Calling you is nice, but I'd like to see you by my side every day. And it would be easier for you too. My Sophia needs a mother, and your boys need a father. Maybe we'll even have a child together. I bet it'll be a boy. Amanda laughed. It wasn't unexpected. Austin had visited her a couple of times after the hospital, and there was a strong attraction between them. Both of them found themselves in the role of single parents, both had lost their spouses. Perhaps this was what fate looked like. Amanda confessed to the priest that she had been angry with God for taking her husband away. The priest blessed Amanda for a second marriage and wished her happiness. Austin and Amanda decided to move to the city. For the next 6 months, they dealt with buying and selling properties. Amanda sold her cottage, and Austin did the same. They pooled their resources and took out a mortgage since they needed a larger apartment for their 3 children, with a 4th one on the way. They found a splendid house on the outskirts. Amanda was pleased that the house was far enough from the place where her father had lived. They moved and settled in. Amanda stayed at home with the children, while Austin, as before, continued to work as an emergency room doctor. Sophia, Austin's daughter, grew very fond of her stepmother she called her mom. And if the stepbrothers misbehaved, she scolded them, defending Amanda. Amanda's relationship with Austin developed wonderfully. If Darren was categorical and could raise his voice, forcing things to happen, Austin showed Amanda a different side. Darren was very religious, that's why he chose Amanda as his wife. He was a good, honest, decent man, but his temperament was quite heavy. Perhaps that's why he couldn't bear that his wife was robbed in the parking lot and rushed after the criminals. When Darren decided to fast, he unquestionably threw away all the food and made Amanda follow the fast as well. It was important to him, and Amanda didn't argue much, she agreed. Austin, on the other hand, was different. If Amanda didn't want to do something, he might try to persuade her or convince her with a hug, but he never insisted. The decisions remained with her. For the first time in her life, Amanda felt such an attitude towards herself. Even in the orphanage when she was little, Amanda didn't receive as much love, attention, and care as Austin gave her. Despite his fairly demanding job, he was very kind. Smiling, he rarely got angry. And when such moments did occur, his anger seemed more like disappointment. Austin and Amanda got married officially. When she got married for the first time, she didn't change her last name. Her father and mother were proud of it. Amanda was young, and she wanted to keep a piece of her own family in her name. She deliberately didn't take her husband's last name. Initially, Darren had said that it was wrong, but later he relented, saying he didn't mind. He wasn't from some noble lineage, he was just an ordinary mechanic. Austin, too, didn't insist on changing the last name, but Amanda decided to take his surname. One day, Austin came home from work in silence. Amanda habitually hugged him and kissed his unshaven cheek, standing on tiptoe. When she did that, her long chestnut braid reached almost to her knees. "What happened?" Amanda asked. "Gunfight in the city center. The 90s are over, but the gangsters still can't stop shooting at each other. And where do they keep coming from? Today, they badly wounded a child, a girl. It shook me up. That could have been my daughter." "She's somebody's daughter too," Austin replied, visibly disturbed. Amanda looked at her husband with concern. "Is she alive?" "Yes, I did everything I could. They rushed her into surgery right away, removed the bullet. She's stable, doctors say she'll pull through. Kids' bodies are resilient. After that, I approached one of the shooters, and he got shot too, but worse. He was dying in my arms." "You know, I almost heard his confession," Austin said, gazing into the distance. "He started telling me that it was his fault a person died. I'm not a killer," he said. "I just got involved with the wrong people. Because of him, another person died. He got into an accident. They shot his tires, and he crashed into a pole at full speed. They stole something. He said he put a gun to his pregnant wife's belly, took her gold. And her husband chased after them and died. He confessed and died. I couldn't do anything." Amanda listened with a heavy heart, not knowing how to console her husband in the face of such painful experiences. Amanda paled. She prepared dinner for her husband, threw clothes into the washing machine, made sweet sandwiches for the kids. But she hadn't said a word since that moment. Later, Austin approached her when the kids were already falling asleep in their room, watching cartoons. "Did I scare you with my story?" "I'm sorry." "Don't worry, shootouts like today are a rarity. They arrested two died, the girl got hurt, but everything will be okay. Come here," he said, pulling her into a hug. He embraced her, and Amanda sighed, looking into her husband's eyes. "I haven't told you about my parents, and I hope you'll forgive me for keeping it hidden." Austin furrowed his brow. "You said you were an orphan and hardly remembered your parents." "Yes, I was 8 when my father and mother were shot in our yard. I'm alive because my grandmother shielded me with her body." Austin's eyes widened, and he took a step back. "Are you Benjamin Ross's daughter?" "You?" Amanda nodded. "I'm sorry for hiding it. There's not much to brag about. My father was a gangster and a murderer. But the worst part is that I still love him. I loved him then, and I even understand now what he did." Austin hugged Amanda so tightly that she could barely breathe. "Everyone knew your father. I couldn't have imagined that you were his relative. Never, not in a million years. You worked at the church, and I heard that his daughter was somewhere in a mental clinic in Altai." Amanda shrugged. "I was there. What happened to me turned me into a neurotic. I have so many phobias and fears. I went to the church to absolve my father's sins. Then I met Darren and started living like everyone else. But I had this idea to help repair the church so it wouldn't close. In the end, Darren died." Austin held her tightly and whispered, "You don't have to carry all of that alone anymore. We'll face everything together." And in that moment, Amanda felt a warmth and understanding that she had never experienced before. Austin furrowed his brow. "Then I have another piece of bad news for you. That gangster said that his brother ordered him to rob his sister. He said it. So, it appears to be the work of Benjamin Ross's son?" Amanda was in shock. "Andrew?" How could he? She couldn't even fathom that he could be behind this. After all, they could have killed her too. Amanda didn't sleep all night. Austin dozed off while she lay next to him, staring at the ceiling. When he woke up, Amanda was wearing makeup, which was uncharacteristic for her. For the first time since they met, she put on jeans. Austin was amazed. Long hair, a slender figure, a light jacket, a t-shirt, and a large cross on her chest. She looked like the heroine from a movie. "Wow," Austin exclaimed. "Where are we headed?" "We're going to my father's company. I sold the shares, but I own the building. Andrew asked me to sell it, but back then, I was preparing my son for surgery. It was just before we met. I think I should visit the office and see what's going on." Amanda had planned everything during the night. Her studies in economics hadn't been in vain. She definitely had a talent for this field. She entered the office, bypassing the secretary who hurried after her. "Excuse me, Mr. Andrew," she entered without permission. "No worries. This is my sister, she doesn't need to knock. Come in, Amanda." "You look great," Andrew smiled. The secretary nearly twisted her neck, examining Amanda. Any mention of her being the daughter of the deceased criminal authority always piqued intense interest in her person. She was his biological daughter, his only child by blood. But all the bloodthirstiness seemed to have somehow passed on to his stepson. "I'd like to discuss my return to the company," she declared. Andrew tensed. "Why?" "I want to be involved in our father's business. I'll transfer the ownership of this building to you, and in return, you'll give me just 5% of the shares. It's a fair deal. Fairer than the one you struck with me. I'm talking about the gift deed I signed in exchange for my son's life." Amanda stared at him with piercing eyes. Andrew understood that she didn't come with good intentions. "Do you want revenge? Shall I buy you off?" "Oh, come on. We're family. Why money? I just want to be involved in what my father did, to earn a small profit, like other shareholders." "I could find another office," Andrew suggested. "You could, but why? This is the exact building where our dad started his business. It's his memory. I've spent years living with that tragedy, but now I want to be with you. I don't aspire to be the CEO, I just need no more than 5%. I just want to help." Of course, Andrew didn't believe Amanda, but he agreed to her conditions. He couldn't move to another building. Andrew held everything related to his father's memory in sacred regard. Amanda stepped into the leadership of the company. Austin didn't like her getting involved in all this. He feared she would end up like her parents. But she was unafraid, vengeance had consumed her. "Leave him be, let God be his judge," Austin pleaded. "I'm already in the company. I have access to his papers. Soon, I'll outplay the financial director and see the real papers." Austin had never seen Amanda as a businesswoman, but she had become one. She started dressing more fashionably and earning good money. 6 months passed. The financial director was disgracefully dismissed. Amanda found a stack of documents that showed he had been embezzling from the company. She didn't even need to frame him, all she had to do was thoroughly search his desk and find the necessary documents. She showed them to Andrew, and the next day, the financial director vanished. Amanda was frightened by this. What would happen to her when Andrew realized she wasn't here to run her father's business? Amanda took over as the financial director. In half a year, she managed to gain Andrew's trust and become his business partner. Andrew saw traits of his beloved father in her and gravitated toward her. To him, Amanda became one of those sacred objects that he associated with Benjamin. He realized that Amanda was his flesh and blood. He began consulting with her, trusting her. Moreover, she truly excelled in finance. Soon, Andrew opened up all his cards to her. She saw the real documents and nearly fainted. Andrew's business was built on blood, threats, and bribes. The company did nothing useful, it merely helped her brother get richer and provided jobs for similarly unscrupulous individuals. Amanda had never expected such duplicity from herself. It was as if her father's spirit had awakened within her. She lied to Andrew, looking him straight in the eye. If a priest saw her, he would think the devil had possessed Amanda. She compiled a massive folder of compromising information on Andrew, but before using it, she visited her parents' graves. Amanda rarely did this, as her feelings were mixed. She had lived her whole life in a state of internal conflict, simultaneously loving and hating her father. If he hadn't been a bloodthirsty monster but had lived like everyone else, everything would have been different. Even marrying her mother and her birth hadn't led Benjamin off the bloody path. Amanda arrived at the grave and poured out everything that had been troubling her to the massive monument with his photograph. She told of how Andrew had treated her and her first husband, how her pleas had gone unanswered, and how he had deceitfully taken over all the company's shares. "Wish me luck, Dad," she said. She placed 2 red roses on his grave and left, not noticing the large black bird that immediately landed on the monument, watching her depart. The next day, Amanda went to the retired investigator who had tried for years to put her in prison. She had heard about him and was afraid to just walk into the police station, as Andrew might have bought everyone off there. Or threatened them. "I brought you what you've been dreaming of," she said. Amanda was wearing a leather jacket and tight-fitting pants. Her hair was gathered in a high ponytail, extending down to her waist. "And what have I been dreaming of?" the gray-haired man asked. Amanda didn't find him at home. He was out fishing. She saw him by the pond, the spot mentioned by his neighbor in the stairwell. The retired investigator was dressed in camouflage, and the bright September sun was warm if you kept moving. But experienced anglers always dressed warmer for fishing since they were going to sit still for hours, staring at the bobber. He took the folder from Amanda's hand and his expression changed. "Who are you?" he asked first. "I'm Amanda Ross, Benjamin's daughter, and Andrew's sister, his stepson. You probably know my brother continues his lawlessness to this day?" The investigator shook his head. "It's good you had the sense to come to me. If you had taken this to our local police, you'd be dead by now. Your brother is even worse than your late father. But why do you want this? Why risk it?" the man wondered. "I'm not like my father was. Yes, he wasn't the same as everyone knew him. I saw a caring and loving person in him. My parents loved each other deeply. But I want you to put Andrew behind bars, just in a way that he can't reach my family. I understand. You can only approach this through the Capitol. Everyone here is under Andrew's thumb. He inherited that control from your father. Don't worry, I'll be cautious. But you need to understand that you're taking a big risk." The investigator contacted the main division in the Capitol where he had an old friend and comrade. A person he had once saved. This friend was more than happy to repay the favor and involved not only the best and most trusted individuals but also high-ranking authorities and divisions. They systematically dismantled the entire criminal organization, arresting every member without any resistance or shootouts. The SWAT team from the Capitol arrived in such force that it sent shockwaves through the criminal network. Amanda watched the news, learning that her brother had been arrested and that substantial evidence was stacked against him. She sighed with relief, but fear still lingered. What if he wanted revenge? 2 weeks passed, during which hearings for Andrew and his associates took place. Amanda received a call from the prison where her brother was held. Andrew asked if you could come for a visit. "Will you be able to?" Amanda was frightened. She agreed to come but didn't mention it to her husband. She knew he would never allow it. Despite the risks, she felt compelled to go. As she entered the cell, she realized this wasn't an ordinary visit, nothing like in the movies. She was left alone with Andrew. His hands were not in cuffs. He could have easily strangled her right then and there, snapped her neck. But she wasn't afraid. She raised her head and looked into the eyes of her stepbrother. Her thoughts burned. "I am Benjamin's true daughter, and he is just a pitiful imitation, a wannabe." So, you turned me into the cops because I didn't help you back then? Because I made you sign over your shares in exchange for money for your son? Andrew asked. Amanda smirked. No. It's because you killed my husband. You sent men who held a gun to my belly. They were the same ones who shot at my husband's tires. He died that day, and I gave birth prematurely. You left my children orphaned. If my father were alive, he would have killed you with his bare hands. Lies. Benjamin loved me. I was his only son. Andrew shouted. Amanda didn't respond. She calmly turned around and left. Andrew was sentenced to 15 years in a high-security prison. He was taken to a facility in a distant part of the country, far from where he had committed his crimes. Not only he, but all his henchmen were put away as well. Pulling at the threads, they unearthed a multitude of other crimes. The bank manager who had conspired with him, the one from whom Amanda had taken back the inherited jewels, ended up convicted as well. Mr. David received a suspended sentence, but his banking career was effectively over. Many others paid the price for their crimes in the end. Austin had been concerned that those who received prison sentences would discover Amanda's involvement and seek revenge. However, that never happened. The retired investigator Amanda had approached portrayed Andrew as the mastermind behind everything. Even the news outlets leaked information suggesting that Andrew had been caught up in a major case, supposedly orchestrated by his competitors. And, in a bid to reduce his sentence, Andrew had turned over information about his accomplices, who in turn implicated others. Of course, he could have yelled that his sister had set him up, but who would believe him? The guilty always shift blame onto others. Amanda sold the company to Andrew, becoming the owner and leader as the founder's rightful heir. She closed the company down and sold it off. With the proceeds, Amanda restored the church that had once been her refuge. She also built roads and a clinic in the village. Amanda, Austin, and their 3 children moved to the village where Amanda had lived before. They bought a large house there and became farmers. They raised poultry, cared for them, and supplied local factories. And soon, Amanda discovered that she was expecting another child. An ultrasound revealed that it would be a boy.